Hello, my name is Dean Rooney, and for my midterm project, I'm going to be talking about Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. So, a bit of an overview of what we're going to be talking about in this video. Martin Luther, who exactly was he? We're going to get into a little bit of his history, just kind of talking about, his past experiences, just who he was as a person. Also, how did he get involved with religion? And then we're going to get into his 95 Theses. Why did he write them? What did these theses contain? What were the three main points of it? Why are they important? And what was the result of them? Okay, so in order to fully understand his 95 Theses, we must first get to know more about Martin Luther as a person in the events leading up to the 95 Theses. Now, bear with me here because there's a lot of history behind this, but it's very, very important that we take this history into account and that we really kind of dig in because this is a historical document and it's very important to know the backstory. So Martin Luther, I have included a picture of him on the side here, was born on November 10th, 1483. He also died February 18th, 1546. He both was born and also died in what is now modern-day Germany. So a little bit more about Martin Luther. He was born into a peasant family, but his father managed to find work as a miner. This allowed Martin Luther to be able to attend school at the age of 7. In 1501, he started studying at the University of Erfurt. His specialization, what he got his master's in, was logic, rhetoric, metaphysics, and grammar. At this time, Martin Luther was trying to achieve his father's dreams for him, which was becoming a lawyer. However, life rarely ever goes according to plan. So was the case of Luther's plan to become a lawyer. Sometime in July of 1505, Luther found himself in the middle of a life-threatening storm. He started praying to St. Anne, who happened to be the patron saint of miners. Side note, remember that his father was a miner, which made his prayer all the more meaningful. So he prayed to St. Anne and asked her to save him from the storm. In return, he would become a monk. As luck would have it, or rather, as St. Anne would have it, the storm cleared and Luther survived. On top of this, it was documented that Luther was already seeking enlightenment and salvation, so the decision to enter the monastery was one that he'd already been thinking about. At 27, Luther became a delegate of a Roman Catholic Church conference. While he was there, he saw many instances of corruption within the church, especially when it came to the Catholic priests. He noted many abuses of power. Around the same time, Luther went back to school, this time for something different. He obtained a doctorate in theology and became a professor of the same subject at the University of Wittenberg. So now we know a bit more about Luther and establish his religious background. Through his studies in his faith, Luther decided that the critical solution to gain salvation for himself was to believe. Just simple as that. Faith and faith alone was enough. He also did not submit to the idea of an angry, vengeful God. In fact, Luther thought that one should not fear God, because, as it says in the Bible, the just will live by faith. This ideology he had is what led to the Reformation and the publishing of his 95 Theses, which we're going to get into now. So around 1517, a lot was going on at the Catholic Church. Among the corruption that included church officials and priests, there were many abuses of power by those even ranked as high as the Pope. Pope Leo X had continuously been selling indulgences to religious members of the community. These indulgences, which usually came in the form of individuals paying money, were promised to essentially cancel out sins they might have committed. A get-out-of-jail-free card, perhaps, only it wasn't so free. It was a trade, an indulgence for salvation. This made Luther very angry. He didn't believe that the church or the Pope had the power to grant someone access to heaven for money, and he made sure people knew that. On October 31st, 1517, he nailed a scroll of paper to the door of the University of Wittenberg's chapel. On this paper contained his 95 Theses. In addition to this, Luther also sent a copy of them to an archbishop and spread copies throughout all of Germany and even into Europe, which is what kickstarted the printing press. Just a little fun fact thrown in there. So let's get into the 95 Theses. We've already said that they were in direct opposition to the selling of indulgences, but there's more to it than that. Overall, there were 3 main points within these theses. I would like to note that these 3 main points were cited directly from Uncommon Travel Germany. This source is included in the works cited page at the bottom and is also in the description if anyone would like to read more on it. So on to it. The first main point was that the selling of indulgences to help build St. Peter's was wrong. Essentially, Luther's position was that if the Pope wanted to build St. Peter's so badly, he should do it out of his own money. Religious officials, being the leaders of their communities, were very rich, especially Pope Leo X. Moreover, since the Pope was so rich, why wasn't he helping the poor instead of asking them for money? 2. The Pope has absolutely no power over purgatory. These indulgences did not make guilt disappear. Penance and remission of guilt can be done without indulgences. The Pope can only, quote-unquote, remove those penalties which he himself has imposed on earth. It's noted that Luther thought the Bible did not give the Pope the right to interpret anything for himself, but only to spread the word of God. Luther claimed that if the Pope did have this power, why didn't he just let everyone out of purgatory for the sake of holy love? If he had this power, money should not have been part of the equation. And 3, buying indulgences endangers one's salvation and gives buyers a false sense of security. You see, Luther thought Christians should be taught that giving is better than receiving. If you spent money on indulgences instead of giving to the needy, you were not living as God intended. Indulgences were a false sense of security. You cannot buy your way into heaven. So getting into the importance of the 95 Theses, these theses were meant as a list of propositions and questions. It got people thinking and started a debate. Over the course of 2 months, people all over Europe had seen this list. Was the selling of indulgences right? Did the Pope have the authority to do this? It got people questioning things that they never would have questioned before. Did they follow God or did they follow the Pope? What was the difference and what did that mean for them? So, the result of the 95 Theses, obviously the Pope condemned Luther's actions. He condemned the writings and, how it was spread. Just essentially all of it. Upon reviewing his teachings, he gave Luther the opportunity to recant, but Luther refused. The blatant abuse of the Pope's power was very clear to him, and recanting would mean going against everything he believed in, including God. He was then excommunicated from the church, and it was ordered that all of his writings be burned. Everything was banned. These theses sparked the Reformation movement and led to serious religious reform, as well as religious division. Due to his excommunication, he organized a new church called Lutheranism, which grew very quickly in its popularity and is still around today. Personally, I pass one every time I go to school. So these theses definitely had a lasting effect on our society. So for this next slide, this is just a little funny picture I saw when I was doing my research. I wanted to include it because it made me laugh, and I thought it might make someone else laugh too. So enjoyed that. And here are my works cited. This first slide of my works cited is all pictures that were on my slides. If you would like to see them, see the sources that come with the pictures, everything's going to be linked down below. And onto the next slide, which is a works cited continued page. It has the funny Twitter picture sourced, as well as the background information that I got. It all came from biography.com. The information on the 95 Theses I got from a couple different websites, as well as the Adventures in the Human Spirit textbook that we all have. Super awesome. If you want to see any of these websites as well, they will also be linked down below. And that's all I got for you. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed this. Really hoped it helped somebody out sometime. And yeah, so I'm gonna sign off now. Bye.